Today we're going to look at the labor market, whereas previously we looked at product markets where firms are the sellers of products and households are the buyers of products. In the labor market, the roles of firms and households are essentially reversed. In the product market, the firm is the seller, the households are the buyers. But in the labor market, it's the households that are the sellers of labor, and it is the firms that are the buyers of labor. In this unit, since it's just basic foundations at the moment, we're going to assume perfect competition in the labor market. Just to remind ourselves the characteristics of perfect competition. Perfect competition, whether it's in the product market or in the labor market, it's a market where there are many buyers and sellers. The product that's being sold is identical, it's very easy to enter, therefore the sellers are all price takers. In fact, everyone's a price taker in this market. So we're going to see perfect competition in the labor market where the firms who are now buying labor and the workers who are now selling labor, they are price takers in the labor market. So, let's draw a model of the labor market, which is similar to perfect competition that you have seen before. Now, you know from our previous studies that in perfect competition there's a difference between the market and the firm. Usually we draw the market and the firm side by side so that we can visualize how the two are working together. So, the labor market is where buyers and sellers of labor meet to determine the equilibrium price of labor, which is the equilibrium wage. The wage is the equilibrium price of labor. That price is decided by the labor market. Each firm in this labor market is a price taker. If this firm wants to hire labor, let's say for example $10 an hour. If this firm wants to hire labor, it takes the equilibrium wage as given and it hires labor at that given wage. In fact, just to save confusion, just use the symbol L, there's no QL for labor. The firm is a small firm in this large, perfectly competitive labor market. The market decides the equilibrium wage, which in this case is $10. If this firm wants to hire labor, it needs to hire labor at that given equilibrium wage. The firm is a price taker. Now previously, you're used to this horizontal line being marginal revenue, but since the firm is actually a buyer in this market, the firm is not a seller in this market. Instead of this being a marginal revenue curve, this now becomes a marginal cost curve, the marginal cost of labor. Back in the product market, that horizontal line would have been marginal revenue because the firm was a seller in that market. But in this market, the firm is buying labor at the given market wage. So this horizontal line is the marginal cost of labor. So here, the firm is a buyer of labor, therefore the horizontal line is actually not marginal revenue, it's actually the marginal cost of labor. The firm is a price taker, therefore that line is horizontal. So if that's what the extra cost looks like, now we need to see what the extra benefit looks like. Before we look at that, let's just remind ourselves about the marginal cost of labor. It is perfect competition, so we're assuming the product is identical. Since we assume perfect competition, each firm has no market power. They're going to buy each worker at the same market wage, which is in this example $10. They cannot pay a different wage to the workers. So, how does the firm decide how many workers it's going to hire? Just like any rational agent, the firm needs to compare its extra benefit to its extra cost. Now, in the product market, we compared marginal revenue of the product to marginal cost of the product. In the labor market, we use a very similar rule. In the labor market, we compare the marginal cost of labor to the marginal revenue product of labor. The marginal cost of labor, which is MCL, and the marginal revenue product of labor, which is MRP. We've already seen what the marginal cost of labor looks like. Now we need to see what the marginal revenue product of labor looks like. What does the marginal revenue product of labor look like? Let's say a certain worker, Elvis, makes 4 pence, and each pen sells for $2. So the extra product, MP, which is the marginal product, is 4 pence. And the extra revenue from each pen, marginal revenue, is $2. Therefore, the value of what Elvis made, MR, $2, times how much he actually did make, 4. We call this marginal revenue product, MRP, which equals 2 times 4, which equals 8. So marginal revenue product is essentially marginal revenue times marginal product. So you won't forget what that means because MRP, marginal revenue times marginal product. So let's see what this graph looks like. What does marginal revenue product look like? We'll need to draw 3 pairs of axes side by side. MRP equals MR times MP. MRP equals MR times P. Now we know that if we have perfect competition in the product market, the MR curve is horizontal. We know from our previous producer theory that the MP curve is an upside down U-shape. Initially, marginal product increases as workers specialize, so the extra product increases. but eventually the capital gets overcrowded and there's diminishing marginal product. So MRP equals MR times MP. Since that's a constant, if you multiply a constant by a curve, the answer is going to look exactly the same as this curve, except if the price is $2, the graph will be twice as big. If the price is $10, it will be 10 times as big. So the graph retains its shape, it's just scaled by however much the price happens to be. MRP looks exactly like MP, except that it's bigger or smaller depending on the price. We're not really worried about the numbers, we're worried about the shape. If the product is only $1, then MRP will be exactly the same as MP. If the product costs $2, then MRP, the graph will be twice as big as this graph. If the product costs 50 cents, then MRP will be half the size of the MP graph. The shape would be retained. So MRP is also an upside down U-shape. And we've just established before that MCL is a horizontal line. To build our model of the labor market, we bring these two together. The extra cost of an extra worker, MCL, marginal cost of labor. The extra benefit of an extra worker, MRP, marginal revenue product. Let's bring the two together and then we will see what the model tells us. Bring MRP and MCL together. To derive our model of the labor market. We've got labor on the horizontal axis, the wage on the vertical axis. MCL is a horizontal line. MRP has the upside down U shape. This is the market wage, W star. The firm hires labor until MRP and MCL are equal. How did we arrive at that? If the marginal revenue product of labor, which is the extra benefit of an extra worker, is greater than the marginal cost of labor, which is the extra cost of an extra worker, well then the firm should hire that worker. So as long as MRP exceeds MCL, the firm should hire. And the firm will keep hiring, 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 until the two are equal. Now, at this point, the extra cost of the extra worker and the extra revenue of the extra worker are equal. If the firm hired past that point, well, if you look at the right-hand side, the extra cost of the extra worker is greater than the extra benefit of the extra worker. It makes no sense to hire workers past this point. So the firm will continue to hire workers until MRP and marginal cost of labor are exactly equal. We'll call this L star, the optimal labor that we should hire. So, just to summarize, MRP stands for marginal revenue product. This measures the extra benefit of the extra worker. MCL is the marginal cost of labor. This measures the extra cost of the extra worker. The optimal labor hiring rule is when MRP firm will keep hiring labor until MRP equals MC. So it's very similar to the product market, where in the product market, the optimal amount of output to produce, you keep producing until marginal cost equals marginal revenue. That's in the product market. So a very similar rule in the labor market. You keep hiring labor until the marginal cost of labor equals the marginal benefit of labor. MCL equals MRP.